Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back talking about the Minnesota Vikings, one of the most intriguing teams in the entire NFL. Philadelphia right now, they just won their 8th straight game. They're 8-0, and they're getting all the love. They're getting all the praise, as they should, currently in the NFC and in the NFL in general. However, the Minnesota Vikings are 6-1. They're right there with them. And the Vikings have had some very impressive wins against some impressive teams. They have had some nice comebacks, particularly in the second half. I saw Kurt Warner the other day was saying until he can kind of take Minnesota seriously as a contender, I want to see them dominate a game, and I really think that's coming. I agree with that comment. I still think they are a force to be reckoned with. I have no particular desire to play the Minnesota Vikings, regardless of the TJ acquisition or not, regardless of, if Captain Kirk is throwing over 300 a night. Regardless of how the offense or the defense looks, they're rolling right now. They are heavily uniting under Kevin O'Connell, and it just is fun. It's fun to watch them, and it's interesting because here we have a quote from, this is a tweet from Chris Tomasin, and it's a quote from Patrick Peterson on the acquisition of TJ. If there's a guy out there that we feel can improve our team, why not go out there and acquire him and try to win this thing? You want to have goals and aspirations of winning a championship, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. You have Dalvin Cook, you have Double J, you have Kirk Cousins. These are all very capable, really solid playmakers, right? Justin Jefferson's one of the best wide receivers in the league. Dalvin Cook's one of the best, the most dynamic running backs in the league. Kirk Cousins, I know he has his flaws. I know he's had his hindrances. However, he's looking pretty good right now. I think at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins is still able to win you any football game that you're in, regardless of the situation. So I agree fully with what Patrick is saying here. When I made a video on the TJ Hockenson acquisition for Minnesota, there were a lot of Lions fans, there were a lot of just random NFL fans, not Vikings fans, kind of berating the trade. Well, so Irv Smith Jr., the tight end one, he has a high ankle sprain. He's out for 10 weeks. That's at least to the end of the regular season. The hope is that he comes back at some point in the regular season and hopefully definitely for the playoffs, but Minnesota had to do something. All right, they had to do something. And when I talk about TJ Hockenson out of Iowa, this guy's a pure playmaker. He's a pure playmaker. And then there's people saying, oh, he's not a good run blocker. Well, statistically this season, he's actually a really good run blocker. He's not afraid of going at the defensive end. He is not afraid of blocking anybody. Whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's an interior lineman, it doesn't matter who it is, he'll block them. All right, the Lions this season are averaging 5.37 yards per rush when he's out on the field. They're averaging a still very impressive 4.66 when he isn't, but that's almost a whole yard per rush, extra yard per rush when TJ is out blocking. So I personally didn't really see how he didn't help the run blocking, and I still think even if theoretically speaking, TJ wasn't the best run blocker in the NFL at the tight end position, well, that's still all fine for me. This is a guy who's been in the league for a handful of years. He's over 2,000 receiving yards. He has over 15 career touchdowns. This season, he's having a very impressive year. In fact, he's having one of the best years of his entire career. He's on pace for it. 26 receptions, 400 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. That's over 15 yards per reception. He hasn't even played in 8 games. He's only played in 7 because of the trade and the bye. So, getting TJ Hockenson to me was a money move. It was an absolute pure money move. So, when we look at the Minnesota Vikings, I was reading an article saying they're rising. I think the article was picking one word for every team in the NFL, and their word that they picked was rising. And you're on a 5-game winning streak. A lot of these games have been comebacks. I think specifically, if we're talking about a first-year head coach, you have these new schemes coming in. You have some new personnel coming in, whether it's in the staff or the players, and you're 6-1. I don't care. I literally do not care if none of the wins have been, as Kirk Cousins said, dominated. We're halfway through the season, so that isn't my concern in any way, shape, or form, because I think all of that's going to follow. And take it from a Green Bay Packers fan. You guys love giving me. You guys love. I love reading it. You guys love giving me slack for living out here in Chicago, being a Green Bay Packers fan, making videos on the Minnesota Vikings. Well, the Viking fans are awesome, actually, and I love Minneapolis, and I have a lot of great friends in Minneapolis, so I love visiting. And every time I drive by that stadium, it looks like it looks like a castle, man. It's the coolest stadium I've ever seen with my own two eyes. I like Soldier Field. I like Lambeau Field. I've been to the Lions one. I've been to Ford Field. I think I might have only been to NFC North games, but Minnesota is clearly by far the best one. But, you guys, the fans, are seriously making this all possible. So hit that like button, hit that sub button. Let's try and get 100 likes on today's video. If you want more Vikings content, go ahead, show some love down below. But getting back to the fact of the matter is this. I can't believe that's the nitpick right now with Minnesota is they haven't dominated a game. Some of these games have been close losses. Well, at the end of the day, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. I'll use a comparison to Green Bay's lost a lot of close games. The Raiders have lost a bunch of close games. Nobody's sitting here saying oh, they're still really good. Because imagine if they didn't lose those close games and they won them. It's well, that's not how it went. So they lost. So that argument doesn't really help us here. And now you try and flip it with Minnesota saying, well, they should have lost a lot of these games that they won. Well, I look at it differently. They're winning a lot of these games. A lot of these games have been comebacks. Yeah, sometimes the offense has crumbled when it matters. Sometimes the defense has crumbled when it mattered. But at the end of the day, they're still getting these wins. I don't really care who it's against. It's the NFL. All 32 of these teams are really talented. So I don't know, man. I'm not putting too much stock into people being cautious about the Vikings because I think realistically speaking, especially like I said, when you have new personnel, you got new coaches, you got new players coming in, I think it's really hard to evaluate a team in the first half of the season. Technically speaking, Minnesota isn't even halfway through the amount of games they have to play. 6-1 right now. So I will wait until probably this next week to really give them a firm evaluation now that TJ Hawkinson is on the squad. Like I said, I know that there's some flaws. I know D-backs, there's some flaws. I know I personally wanted them to go out and get a cat like Brandon Cooks or any type of more low-key wide receiver that really just adds your offense a whole nother element, takes you to the next level. But that's exactly what TJ Hawkinson does. So shout out to them. I guess theoretically you could still get Odell. However, we'll save that for a different day. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the Minnesota Vikings right now. It's Friday afternoon here, rainy day in Chicago. Probably won't make another Viking video until the game day on Sunday. So show some love down below if you want more Vikings content. But as always, hit that like button, hit that sub button. Appreciate all you guys. Have a great weekend.